And finally, to the skeptic. And to introduce the skeptic, I would like to share with you a story by the Canadian comedian, writer and counsellor David Grunerer. It is a story of him attending a personal development seminar put on by his workplace. I am sure many of you would have attended such a seminar. Clasp your hands together with the palms open and facing each other. We put our hands in the prayer pose as the speaker directed. Then there was a moment of silence. Now take your hands and rub them together like you were washing them. Again the group did as she said. A minute ago, who here felt uncomfortable because I thought I was going to ask you to pray? The seminar leader asked. Several people, including myself, raised their hands. The exercise shows you how you approach new experiences. If you thought I was going to make you pray, it means you approach situations and people with suspicion. And remember, if you do that, you will create a negative reality. But if you just stayed open to the possibilities and didn't feel the need to protect yourself, it means you approach the universe with trust, and that trust will attract good energy towards you. Quite frankly, David Grunerer said, I just felt like I'd been manipulated. First of all, I'd only met the speaker 2 minutes before, so why would I trust her? Trust is earned over time. And in terms of trusting the situation, I had been to seminars where speakers had asked their audience to pray, so it's not like my suspicion was totally unjustified. He continued. The truth was I and the others had been set up. The speaker had created an experience that had negative associations for many, and then told us we were wrong for having those feelings. She was telling us not to trust our feelings, when the wise thing to do, when something reminds you of or symbolises a bad or questionable experience, is to proceed with caution, not dive in head first. If a stranger calls and says you've won a big prize, but first you have to give him $5,000 in cash as a deposit, the smart thing to do is to be very, very sceptical. And in the highly unlikely possibility that this offer is legitimate, your sceptical reaction to being asked to give $5,000 would still be appropriate. Furthermore, if you've been swindled at some point in your life, chances are you will be extra sceptical next time. A dictionary definition of skepticism is a doubting, questioning, or suspicious attitude or state of mind. It's not very fashionable to have those qualities in our trust the universe culture of personal development, and unfortunately the words doubt and suspicion evoke negative association. In our culture of positivity, people with these qualities are seen as killjoys. Two forces have battled within human beings since the dawn of time: the desire to believe and the desire to protect ourselves. When these two components, openness and skepticism, are well balanced, we usually make good choices. On the one hand, we have the childlike part that wants to believe anything, and then there's the adult skeptic who likes to see some proof. To be balanced people, we need both the trusting child and the adult skeptic. We want to remain open and not lose our sense of wonder, for without it we would become over-cynical and bitter. But it's a dangerous world out there, and we need to protect ourselves from bad choices. Skepticism protects and empowers us. We may desperately want to believe that if we think only positive thoughts, nothing bad will happen to us. But on some level, if we are really honest with ourselves, we remain skeptical. And we ask questions like, what evidence is this belief based on? It also motivates us to look around and see if this belief fits in with our experience of life. When we accept or reject a belief based on our own analysis, we feel empowered. We have a sense of ownership. But by unquestioningly believing, we abdicate the ability to think and make choices for ourselves. The German playwright, poet and philosopher Goethe said, "All truly wise thoughts have been thought already thousands of times, but to make them truly ours, we must think them over again honestly until they take root in our personal experience." We can use our skepticism in a wise way by asking 3 questions. The first question we can ask is, does this feel right to me? Is there some sort of inner click or resonance? The second question is, Does this new idea, theory or system or proposal fit with my experience of how life usually is? And the third question is, what evidence is there to support what this person is saying? What evidence is there to support this new idea or proposal? We've all had the experience, I'm sure, of being in a group when a skeptic questions the views of the presenter, and we heave a silent sigh of relief. He or she has done what we were too timid to do. They have questioned what was being presented as fact, as accepted wisdom, and in doing so they've opened up the discussion for a much wider variety of opinion. Equally, I'm sure we've all had the experience of being in a lecture or a workshop and somebody just finds fault with every single thing the presenter says. Is that person a skeptic, or are they just a pain in the neck? A pain in the neck has the amazing knack of being able to turn almost any discussion into a power struggle and ruin a group experience for everyone. While a true skeptic operates out of an attitude of curiosity, seeking answers to legitimate questions, the pain in the neck just wants to travel down a predetermined negative track, and the outcome is always the same. A true skeptic, as opposed to a pain in the neck, behaves like Detective Columbo on the 1970s TV show Columbo. Lieutenant Columbo was a bumbling detective who had an uncanny knack of solving homicides. His modus operandi was to get to know the suspect in a non-threatening way. Rather than finger-pointing, he would ask the subject's help in understanding various aspects of the crime. By making someone else the expert, he avoided a power struggle, as he elicited the information needed to make his case. People like to be asked their opinion, since for most of us, what we think is the most fascinating thing in the world. Columbo's question usually began with, "Could you help me to understand?" Sooner or later, the suspect would divulge incriminating evidence, and Columbo would have his conviction. While we're not solving homicides, I think Columbo's principles are sound for us as well. When we are skeptical, by allowing the other person to be an expert and explain things to us, we get the information we need without creating a power struggle or evoking defensive reactions. And once we have what we need, we can politely and firmly make a decision that is right for us, from my adult perspective. And so there we have them, the fool, the trickster, and the skeptic. They are there with us, always on the periphery of life. They are there in concrete reality. We meet them from time to time, and we are struck by the deep wisdom and prophecy of the fool, the invigorating irreverence of the trickster, and the measure and rigour of the skeptic. We meet them in concrete examples of the people we know, who are fool, trickster, or skeptic. And we meet them in the archetypes within our own selves. Whether we meet them in concrete or symbolic form or both, these entities flutter at the periphery of our existence, calling to us with their subversion, their power, and their wisdom. And maybe it would be wise for us from time to time to call them into the centre of our existence and to experience and inhabit them in all their power and glory, and return to the world to tell it all that we have seen. Amen.